Welcome to Chronicles of Transformative Change and Impact, where we navigate the path from vision to impact, one story at a time. I am your host, Carol Reese, and on this show, we uncover the personal quests and powerful stories of individuals and communities who are making a real difference. Join us as we explore journeys of transformation, innovation, and empowerment. Get ready to be inspired, challenged, and motivated to create your own impact. Today's guest is the dynamic Dr. Danni Gladden-Green.
Good afternoon, Dr. D. I am so excited to have you here. I really am, because you're one of my sheroes. You've had just a wealth of knowledge. You've had various careers, and you spend time giving back and building others. And I think that is phenomenal. So I want you to introduce yourself and tell us all about why I think you're phenomenal.
Well, thank you, Carol. I'm really excited to be here with you as well. A new foray for me to be interviewed. I'm used to interviewing
Yes,
people.
yes.
But my name is Danni Gladden-Green. That is my born name. Well, actually, Danni Gladden is my born name.
Mm.
Of course, the green was added some years later. I am an entrepreneur. I am an educator. I am a community activist. I am a mother, grandmother, and I'm Sheila Gladden Tunstall's daughter.
Okay, well, so tell us where you range from. I know you've lived in various places. Where did you start your journey?
Randolph County, North Carolina.
Okay,
My mother was a single mom
okay.
back in the 60s, mid 60s. I grew up in a little town. Well, part of my growing up was in a little town in Ramseur, North Carolina.
Never heard of it.
Exactly. Maybe about 20 miles, Greensboro, North Carolina. But we moved to Richmond, Virginia when I was in elementary school, and that's where I grew up. I grew up here in Richmond, and then I went back to Carolina, which is North Carolina A&T State University, Aggie Pride.
Aggie born, Aggie bred.
When I die, I'll be
Aggie
dead.
dead. Yes.
So my academics took me into a lot of places. I ended
Okay.
up in Massachusetts at MIT, and then after that, I went and took a job in Texas,
Okay.
Texas Instruments. So yeah, I've lived around. I haven't lived out of the country yet.
Okay.
That's on the mark.
That's on my list too. I do. I want to live 3 months in another country and then 3 months in another country for a year. My husband and I retire. I'm warming him up to the idea.
Okay.
Yeah. So our listening audience may not know about what you do and how you do what you do. So for me, I've known you as the director of the Women's Business Center here. You have been leading your own consulting firm, and you had corporate positions, major positions in your journey. And all of that has helped you attain what about Dr. D?
I would say that I began as I'm ending. My foundation was faith and education. I know that, I had faith that if I did what I needed to do, God was going to do what he was going to do.
Yeah.
And so we all have purpose on us and in us. And I believe that I found my purpose.
Okay.
And, from being a engineer, my first foray into the corporate experience with the Texas Instruments, being responsible for pushing silicon out to the point where it got into small battery-powered handheld devices.
Wow.
So I was in the chips, microelectronics, and I got out of it when we got to nanoelectronics. I don't know how small it is today.
Okay.
That took me through Texas Instruments, Motorola Freescale, Dell Computers, that kind of thing. I really do stand on the value of technology and innovation.
Okay.
And so I think whether it is in my chosen profession or in the business where I help entrepreneurs identify, in some cases, their path. So whether it is from developing their business idea and their business planning to growing and scaling their business. I was doing that with Sajis Consulting 2004 was my first
awesome
foray
20-year
into
anniversary. Well, congratulations.
That's where I started my foray. it was always something on the side.
Yes, yes, yes.
So I had great experiences with large consulting firms like
Okay.
Anderson Consulting,
Mm-hmm.
KPMG, and all of them.
Okay.
And what I realized is that there are other businesses that need that kind of expertise,
Mm-hmm.
but it's far outside of their reach
Gotcha.
financially.
Right. Right.
Also, I learned that a lot of times the word consultant is code for let me borrow your watch and tell you what time it is. Most of the times when they came in, they just surveyed all of the people there, and the answers
Right.
were in the company.
Okay.
But they did a good job of synthesizing it and putting it in beautiful PowerPoint presentations and telling us what we already knew.
Gotcha.
But because it came from another source,
right.
it had credibility.
It had credibility.
But
okay.
my thing was I wanted to be real and have impact on other businesses. So I started working with small and diverse businesses probably in 2025 after I got my footing and realized, okay, this is a calling. This is not just I got education.
Well, I want to back up because you said 2025, so I know that hasn't gotten here yet.
Ooh.
I understand.
2005.
Yes, that's what I know you meant.
2004 is when I first founded my business.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Plano, Texas.
Okay.
And still was at Texas Instrument.
Mm-hmm.
And then my career started to pick up, and I got a lot of opportunities. I'll be honest with you, there were obstacles.
Of course.
But how I choose to look at an obstacle is that it's an opportunity.
Now let's stay there for a minute, because it sounds as if, because of your career track and what you've done, that sometimes you are the only you in the room. And maybe our listening audience can glean some opportunities from those challenges, obstacles, or even when there was time when you said to yourself, I'm going to take my earrings off. How do you come back from that?
Oh, Carol, that is a great question. Sometimes I still put Vaseline to take my earrings off.
I understand.
But let me give you an example. So I came in as a new hire into Texas Instruments. Back in the day, just years of tenure mattered a whole lot.
Yes.
But
yes.
TI had a system that you came in your first 5 years, you wore a red badge.
Meaning?
And then that you were a newbie. And so before you spoke, it spoke.
Okay. So they can't hear you because of the red badge.
Right, because she don't know what she's talking about.
Right, yes.
And you get to 5 years, it's a green badge. And you get to 10 years, it's a yellow badge. I mean, I can't believe I remember all this. In 20 years,
okay,
it's a gold badge.
Okay.
So I'm a red badge.
Mm-hmm.
But I came in, I was like, it's a corny phrase. I was super excited. I knew a couple of people because one guy had came from MIT. This was after I finished my master's degree.
Okay.
And so I'm in a room and people are talking about what we're doing. I probably had been there 3 months.
Okay.
But I knew what I needed to do. I
Right.
was a process engineer. I was responsible for thin film deposition. And
I don't know what that means, but okay.
Okay. And it's an environment. Just think of it like you got a piece of bread, that's your substrate.
Okay.
You got some peanut butter, you spread that on.
Okay.
And then sometimes because you're doing it for your kids, you put the other piece on top and you cut it, you make a little heart.
Mm-hmm.
So you're making something and you're shaping something.
Right.
So the thin film goes all over the bread, but when you make a device, you're cutting it out.
Okay.
And so they were talking about my process, and they were talking about some scrap. So scrap is you put 25 wafers in, and only 5 of them are good, or only 20 of them are good, however bad the process is. And I started speaking up, and I was just going. And I didn't realize that I had left the room behind me because they were looking at me like, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, are they of the opinion I'm not supposed to speak? And so within my first 6-month cycle, I became the red badge who gonna speak up.
Okay.
I mean, it's just, I was raised differently. My DNA is a little bit different than most people. And I didn't always recognize that. But today I walk in who God created me to be.
Me too.
And the experiences that I've had and the people who poured into me in my life, I would be doing them a disservice if I had to try to hide my light under a bush.
Right.
But what it was I didn't have the fear that some people had that somebody else might judge what they say. I was okay being wrong. But what I'm not going to do is be quiet in the room where what y'all talk about sound like it's wrong.
I understand. I understand that. And because of that, as people who speak up, because I too share your sentiment When you acknowledge that you're different, and sometimes you come into a room, others recognize you're different, they try to disqualify it. But we know that different doesn't mean wrong. And speaking up doesn't mean I'm trying to be loud and overtalk you or dumb you down, but this is my voice and this is my opinion. So as you have used your voice and opinion in various entities and organizations, how has it helped you or hurt you?
I left a lot of pissed off people in my past. Can I say that?
Yes, you can say that. Yes.
Oh, I have no. It ain't. You know how some people speculate. Well, no, I know.
Right. Yes.
And so, because people talk, and this is another thing I learned in corporate America. What gets said gets back. So people who run their mouth,
Gossip
it
mill.
always comes back.
Always.
But this is the thing. The favor of God is not fair. And most of the times when I was challenged, I ended up being right. So even when people try to put a mouth on me, that arrogant girl from MIT, you know what I would say? No, 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 no. I am an assertive girl from North Carolina A&T. So I feel like where you make your bones, where you get to a point where you understand that it's important. So my thing was to always, I might not be as smart as you, but you can't outwork me. You can't out prepare. You can't outstudy me. I'm gonna know. So when I go in a room, my goal was to always be the most prepared, the most knowledgeable about the issues that affected me and my product. And if you are there, then it's not just enough to know what you know. You need to know what you don't know. So that
I need you to say that again.
It's not enough just to know what you know. You need to know what you don't know.
Very
because
important.
That's where you don't cross that line. Because when you do that,
yes.
Once they find something, they can stick into you.
Yes.
So yes, I think that it has affected my promotion.
Okay.
I believe in all of my years, I was in the semiconductor industry 25 years before I was ever laid off.
Okay.
And that's rare because a lot of people get laid off. Semiconductor would grow, it was boom and bust. But I always had a spot. But I moved into management. Your technical prowess, there's this matrix that I like to talk about. Okay. It's called on the right side, on the left side, let's call that performance. On the x-axis, let's call that your culture.
Okay.
So and this was taught to me by a gentleman named Steve Lukowski. I don't even know if he's still walking this earth, but I love you, Steve.
Yes.
So he said, when you don't fit into the culture and your performance is poor, you get replaced. He said, when you fit into the culture, you're high on the x-axis, but you're low on performance, you get another chance. When your performance is high, but you don't fit into the culture, you get used. And if you want to get promoted, you need to have high performance and high culture. Wow. And so I learned that later. Okay. He taught me later when I crossed out of the technical side because I got used on the technical side. Yes, yes. So, sometimes I'm a social person. Okay. I fit in, I got it. But if I felt that I was right, you're not going to tell me I'm wrong. Gotcha. I understand. And so being willing to bite my tongue. I got an aunt, shout out to Aunt Celia. My aunt said, Dee Dee, don't you know that that's them people's job? You're going to act like it's your company. It is, CC, it is. Yeah, it is. Exactly. And so, I mean, it definitely had an impact on sometimes my promotion. It never had an impact on my money. Because I'll tell you like they told me. People can tell you you're good, they can tell you you're great, or they can tell you that they don't like you. Believe what's on the paper. So as long as that paper was right, we were right. Okay. You said that number had to have a certain amount of zeros for it to be worth doing the work like that. Exactly. So now that is awesome. And so when I've heard your story, I hear a certain boldness, right? But boldness and confident in your boldness. In today's business world, how do we help the individuals that are listening that are in a position similar? Because we still have the first. We still have first going into certain rooms. How do we help them embrace their boldness and their voice without the fear? It can be learned. Okay. I would dare say that mine was innate. It's just my grandfather was the firstborn. My mother was the firstborn. I was her firstborn. Okay. And I just came out with so much love and support and encouragement. I say this not to boast, but to say that it's the reason why I do what I do now.
Okay.
I have never felt unloved.
That's
I
awesome.
have never felt unsupported.
Okay.
And no matter where I was in the world or what I was doing, I have always felt that there was somebody who was rooting for me.
Awesome.
And so when you say, how do you do that? First of all, if no one else takes anything from our conversation today, I really want you to hear this. Everything that you need to achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve and what God has purposed in your life, you were born with.
Already got it in there.
It's already there.
It's already there.
And so when you do the things that I do, when I coach people around leadership, I coach them in entrepreneurship, the first thing I have to break down is the enemies from within.
Woo, speak on that, girl. Speak on that.
Well, you know, it's a thing. I don't know how cultural it is, but I do know that it has to do with our gender.
Okay.
And for some reason, we question ourselves twice as much as anybody else. And then we compare ourselves to each other. That's a no-no.
That's a no-no.
You are not trying to be better than the next woman or even the next person. You're trying to be the best person for you. You are trying to optimize what it is that you do. Right. And so I work a lot on mindset management.
Mindset management. Because when you walk in a room, and a lot of times if you're the only you in that field, you feel some kind of way, and then you can feel the energy from the others. And I had to learn by doing that. I just own the room and I block out the other energy. And a lot of times if I find that someone doesn't like me, I'll go speak to them first and smile, you know, and do that first because I don't really care how they feel about me. It's how I feel about me that matters. Right. And so, and on that line, because as we're talking about mindset, the phrase you just said, what did you just say? You said, you know, I forgot, right?
You got to tell me which one it was.
It was mindset management. Mindset management.
Yeah, you got to manage the mind because that's going to set the energy.
Right. Oh yeah. Okay. It's okay. It's okay. It went off. Yeah.
But I mean, that's essential. So let me just say this: pay homage to those who have laid the groundwork.
Right.
So I had a mentor. He was actually a manager.
Let's put this behind your back. Okay. Might be better. Yeah.
A French guy.
Okay.
Edgar Oslander.
You meet the most interesting people, so we'll have to have another segment to talk about that. Yes. The people of influence that helped me. Yes.
So Edgar, he coached me. He was my mentor, but he was fabulous, known internationally. He made me known internationally.
Wow.
He never stole my shine. In fact, anything that I did for him when he was in a room that people like me wasn't in the room, but I did the work, he brought me in the room to pitch.
Oh, wow.
So, shout out to Edgar. But anyway, told me you should never be in a meeting and have nothing to say.
I've heard that. Yes.
And so if you're in the room, you belong in the room. If you belong in the room, you have something to say. You don't have to say a lot. It doesn't have to be loud.
Ask one question.
That's it. That's what I was going to say. It doesn't have to be a statement. Right. It can be a question. The right question can set you apart because it puts you on the right track.
And somebody else wanted to ask that question.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. This is fabulous. And I love the energy here. Okay, so now let's get down to Dr. D. We've heard your journey. We've heard about your career. We've heard about the things and the changes and some nuggets, and I want some more nuggets. But let's talk about Dr. D. Who is she?
I'm immensely grateful.
Okay.
So I am grateful for the opportunities that have been afforded to me, which I think goes beyond some of the obstacles that existed as an African American woman born in the South to a single mother, right? The places that I've been and had a chance to do, I don't count it as I'm so good or so great.
Right.
So I'm grateful. I'm resilient. I have been knocked down.
Yes.
But I've never been knocked out. And so
I like it.
My faith fuels my progress. I'm going to always look to move forward.
Okay.
There is a way. I got that from my mother. My mother was resourceful. And one of the phrases that I don't know if it's a phrase she said or it's just what the feeling was that I got from her is that there's always a way to get to where you're trying to go. and there's always someone else who can open the door. So if you get 100 no's, keep asking because there's somebody who can do what you need them to do.
Right.
But
Right.
she was resourceful and resilient, and she passed that along, whether it's through blood or just teaching or observing her. She was an entrepreneur.
Okay.
I never thought I would want to be an entrepreneur, but I thank God that in these last 2.5 years, I have been able to support myself, my family, and do the things I want to do in life by just working for me.
Just working for me. And it's a challenge, right? Because it's a roller coaster.
Yes.
And you have to be, like you say, resilient. You get knocked down, but you get back up. In all of those things helps you really identify who you are, where you're trying to go. What is your journey like now, right? Where are you going now?
So, interestingly enough, I feel like I did when I entered the workforce at 23, 24.
Okay.
I really feel like that fresh, but I know that there's a legacy coming behind me.
Yes. Okay.
So I'm working on those things that when I am gone across Jordan, that there will be other young girls or other business owners or my grandchildren, my children, that they will be able to hold on to some of those things that I've taught them or some of the things that I've overcome, such that either they don't have to go through them or they know they can get through them.
Yes, yes, because you set the example,
Right.
your mother set the example, and you shared the stories, because stories are very important,
Powerful.
very powerful, which leads me to your ebook, your book.
So,
let's talk about it, Gary.
So let me just be clear. Not to toot my own horn, but this
toot your own horn. This is a space to toot your horn, girl. Whoop whoop. Yes.
No. So there are 2 ebooks that are in process.
Okay.
I've published 2 other books that mostly had to do with my life and growing up.
Okay.
Yes. One is a book of poetry, and the other one tells the story of my raising through the eyes of my grandfather, who contributed and built me up. So those 2 were published in 2008.
Okay. Okay.
So the one that I'm working on now is called This Little Business Went to Market.
It is fabulous. Okay. I just want to put that out there.
And I'm trying to put the final touches on it. I'm trying to, my goal, my desire was to get it out in 2024, but it will be out by first quarter 2025.
It's timing.
Timing
is everything.
And I'm making progress.
And you're making progress.
It's not like I'm standing still.
But also, we think we have a timeline, but we know it's not our timeline. And when it comes out, it's going to be perfect timing. Yeah. Yes, indeed.
And so, I think it is important. One of the things that I sought to do when I started up the Women's Business Center of Richmond, I really wanted to be the de facto resource for people who were just starting. So if you are in the conception phase of where you are, again, the biggest challenges that you have oftentimes are inside of you.
Yes.
And so you want to break through and put some how-tos. It's not just enough to pat people on the back and say, you can do it, Duffy Moon.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? The little engine keep No, you've got to give some resources. So I have built in there tools for you to analyze the timing to determine if the timing and the mindset is right. But it's never designed to, because everybody is not necessarily meant to be an entrepreneur. But you shouldn't, no one can tell you that that's not for you. But you can do some assessments. You can come to some conclusions based on, is the timing right for you to do that? Because you got to have it right. When I coach people and they're looking at leaving their corporate job, I say, well, what is it going to take for you to do it? Well, I need to replace my income. Well, it's not enough just to replace your income. If you make $100,000 in corporate America, that's probably more equivalent to 130 or more.
Right.
And so you need to be able to make sure that at the first sign that you got and can't do what you do, you need to be able to take care of yourself.
Yes, exactly.
So, understanding little things like how to apply certain equations to what it takes for me to be able to be sold. Because as an entrepreneur, I started, it was like this. There was boom and bust. It was drought and it was a flood. Then you find out how to ensure
that rhythm.
That's right.
That's
you got to find your groove.
You got to find your groove. And what I have found in my previous world is coaching is mindset, right? And one thing about entrepreneurs that are successful and those of us who fail and get back up is that resiliency that this is what you're supposed to be doing, right? You know this. And so with that in mind, Dr. D, I have this knowledge, and now I got your book, which is going to help me, which I wish I had 20 years ago when I started doing this in the 1900s, right? The 1900s, girl. Woo! I know I just got out of elementary school, so I look like. But I think that we are overwhelmed with tools and information. But what it does is tells us about, there's so many business books. You can do this, but it's very few books who address us, the individual, in the business realm, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I like about your book is it addresses you, because the habits of who you are is who you take into your business. You're not going to be a disorganized person at home and think
And
your
all of
business is
a
going to
sudden,
organize. No, it's not going to work like that.
it's
So
not.
tell us, what are your favorite things that you like to do for businesses? What is your sweet spot? If you had to do something, if you could do it for free, which I know it's not, but what would that be?
Yeah, you're right. Not for free. You made me think about something. I was talking to this man, and he was saying, "Oh, that sounds good. I would love to do that." And I said, "Okay, well, let's just be clear.
Mm,
I'm not free, and I'm not cheap."
yes.
I think what I like most, I really do like helping businesses scale. I
Okay.
like, the business that has been solid and doing well. I like to get them to think about, well, what are you doing internationally?
Okay.
What
Okay.
relationships do you have
Mm-hmm.
that you can be able to leverage that
Right.
in Ghana, in Mexico, in
Gotcha.
Canada? And so expanding, not just I got a site on this side of Richmond and I got one on the other side,
Right.
but I really do like driving international engagement because if I'm a small business, it's okay. I can be small when it's time to be small,
Right.
but you really don't have to always stay
You
small.
don't have to stay
I
small.
mean, and I know that there's a lot of other challenges that we have as a
Right.
people
Yes. Yes.
with societal and systemic
Yes.
things.
Yes.
But if you think bigger,
Right.
if you
Yes.
look at partnering,
Yes.
those are ways, and I have to teach people to let go. The
Right.
second thing I really like to do as it relates to coaching businesses and or growing businesses, because I consider myself a chief growth officer. Thank
I
you for
love
that.
it.
You know, thank you for that.
Wow, that's a throwback right there. Yes,
Exactly.
that's
When
a
you gave me
throwback.
that article,
Yes.
bam, that's what I do, boo.
Yes.
I help you grow.
Yes.
But I deal with entrepreneurs who are really more sole proprietors,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them don't have children that they want to pass it on to, and some of
Mm-hmm.
them children don't want to pass it on.
Right.
And when I
Yes.
try to help them, they think, well, when I retire, I just retire and I
Mm-hmm.
close the business, or maybe I'll sell the business. Don't sell your house. Don't sell your business. These are resources and assets that we need
Yes.
to accumulate.
Yes.
The sad thing is that most of the time we don't realize that
Mm-hmm.
the most real estate that the black community has is typically our churches.
Yes.
And those are underutilized. So I'm not going to go
Mm-hmm.
into that. But
Okay.
from a business
Not this
standpoint,
segment.
it's
Yes.
okay
Mm-hmm.
to evolve to managing your advisory board or your
Mm-hmm.
governing board.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to hire a CEO and let them run your business and you get residual income.
Yes.
I said this to a colleague the other day, and I really mean it. Our goal when we work for our companies or ourselves ought to be to put ourselves in a position that we have residual income,
Preach.
unearned income
Preach.
that comes to us after we decide not to go into the office.
Right.
If you're not doing something that's going to put you in a position to generate wealth that follows you, whether you go into the office or not, you're not doing it right.
Yes.
We don't all have to work ourselves to death.
I know.
We can hire an executive, let them run the company, we can run the board, and we can still get a quarterly payout.
That's what I'm working on right now. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, two final questions.
Okay.
What makes you smile? And you spoke about your legacy, and I love that you spoke about that. But my second question is, how will people get in touch with you? How would they reach you?
After being married
Mm-hmm.
over 30 years, which both of us are
Right.
in that, you go through a lot of stuff.
Well, can't kill them because it's against the law.
Right. And even when I was going through menopause, and I
Yes.
thought I was literally, but my husband still makes me smile.
Isn't that awesome?
I mean, we could be in the middle of a disagreement, and I'll say something a certain way, and he'll look at me, and we both bust out laughing.
That's
I've known
awesome.
my
That's
husband
awesome.
since I was 12,
Okay. Okay.
and we are best friends.
Mm. That's
do or die.
awesome.
I always say we don't have divorces in this family. We have funerals.
We have funerals.
But
That's
but my husband makes me smile.
That is so sweet.
He
Awesome. I love her husband. He is a very quiet, gentle, giant kind of guy, small demeanor. So now, if I wanted to reach out to you, inquire about your services, how would I do that?
Contact at Dr. Danni, DRDANNI.com.
Okay.
You can email me. You can reach me on all my socials.
Okay.
Dr. Danni G.
Dr. Danni G.
On all platforms.
Okay. All right.
And but I'm here.
Yes.
I would like to think that you're probably one person removed if you don't know me. Not just in the state I'm in, but Virginia, Texas, Massachusetts,
wherever.
You name it.
Yes,
DC,
indeed.
Maryland.
All of it. Let's give her a warm welcome, and we will be having you back.
Thank you for joining us on Chronicles of Transformative Change and Impact. I hope today's stories inspired you to take your own journey toward impact and transformation. Remember, every vision has the power to create change, one step and one story at a time. Be sure to tune in next time as we continue to explore the quests that shape our world. Until then, keep striving, keep transforming.